Yeah. So one of the very important steps in integrated landscape management process is identifying the stakeholders. Sure. Yeah. So you need to know what does that mean. You identify who these stakeholders are, who are the actors that intervene in a given landscape. You need to know who they are. By identifying stakeholders, you need to identify who they are, what categories of stakeholders are they? Are they individuals? Are they groups? Are they farmers organizations? Are they cooperatives? You need to know all these categories. And the scale. And the scale in which they intervene in a given landscape. Because by knowing who these stakeholders are, you may easily get them involved in a multi-stakeholder forum that actually, which is another important process in putting in place an integrated landscape management activity. So what I mean is you identify who the stakeholders are, but it does not stop at identifying who they are. It's not just by saying, oh, there is this actor, there are farmers, there are producers, there are cooperatives, there are policymakers. That's not it. You need to know them, but you need to move a step further by identifying what is their role in that given landscape. Why are they interested in that landscape? Because all these stakeholders have different interests, and sometimes their interests are conflicting, or sometimes they have different powers or level of influence in which they intervene. So you need to do it. It's not just about identifying them, but you need to move a step further by identifying how much can they influence things positively or negatively, especially with regards to the objectives that we want to attain in a given landscape. This is very important. But what do you mean by power and what do you mean by roles? Okay. Yeah, let me begin by saying what is role? The role may be just like um um the role may be like he's interested in um attaining his livelihood. Mhm. He's just interested in his livelihood. Others may be interested in gaining resources. Others may be interested in gaining popularity. Mhm. Okay, but others also may have the role of maybe supporting to make sure that the landscape has remains sustainably managed. And this is where you may have, in this category, you may have different development actors. But now power is the degree to which they can change things, the degree to which they can force one or another actor to do things that they don't want to do. That is what we mean. And this power may vary. If you take a scale from maybe 0 to 10, somebody may have a power of like 10, but which is a negative power because it stops others from doing things. I'm taking the case of in a given landscape we have in Central Africa, which is in the north, we have the effect of the Boko Haram. Well, okay, they stop development actors from going to the field because they may easily be kidnapped. You have rustlers, those who steal cattle, who take people for ransom. Those are powerful actors. But can you bring those guys on the table? And the other thing is that, like we saw in Colombia, is that people feel threatened if they participate. So it's not only the team and an issue of security, it's also how people can participate if the area is under the control. Exactly. So when we do this stakeholder analysis, we identify who they are, what's their role, what's their interest, what's their level of power, what's their capacity now to improve, to take decisions. We now move to the next step, to build their capacity. Mhm. And building their capacity means that the less powerful, you have to make them more participating. It is not representation. That's something people feel because in most activities within the landscape, when people try to put up multi-stakeholder forums, what they do is they say, okay, farmers are represented, the minority groups are represented.
It's like a checklist.
It's just a checklist.
Yes.
It's a checklist. They don't really care whether that category of persons have the decision or the power to say things that they really want to say.
Interesting.
So let me land, let
Yeah.
me finish. So in building capacity, I'm coming to you, Raphael. In building capacity, you need to make sure you build the capacity of the less powerful, as well as the capacity of the most of those we consider powerful, because those who are less powerful, they are afraid to talk in the midst of those they consider the powerful. So you have to build the capacity of those chiefs, okay? Because sometimes it's mostly the traditional rulers, or maybe some actors that the less powerful consider these are the guys that matter. So they don't talk in front of them. But you have to build the capacity of that category of the powerful to be also to accept the less powerful, or let their voice speak, so that they are free to talk in public, or take decisions where it matters. Yeah, maybe you can come in.
Thanks. I want to come back on the participation of less powerful people, and my question is about the inclusion. Do you think that the process is inclusive just because you bring them uh, on the table, you take them on board? What about the inclusiveness of the process?
I think this is a key question, because this is something that we say, like ILM is participatory, is bottom up, is, but to me is pluralism and inclusiveness. Not everything has to be bottom up, but it's really how do you make sure that you negotiate in a pluralistic context. How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. When we talk about inclusivity, I think I already mentioned the factor of the fact that we have to separate representation and active participation. That's where inclusivity comes in. It's not just about them being there. You bring people on the table. Valentina talked mention of checking the list. That yes, are the minority groups here? Yes, okay, we'll clap your hands. Pygmies, yes. No, that's not what they have to do. But if the pygmy is there and he has his stake, he has to live. But we say he does not have to hunt given species. We need to explain. He needs to be able to express himself in a given multi-stakeholder forum that is managing a given landscape. That now that you are stopping me from hunting this or that species, what alternative do you give me? Those are the kinds of things he must be able to say that in the midst of everybody. So he build his capacity to talk in public. You build his capacity to represent his people, because sometimes they come and they don't even give feedback to their communities, or even to take claims from the community to bring to the table. You need to build that capacity. That's what it's all about, building capacities for them to talk, represent their communities, take claims from the community, bring to the table, get feedback back to the community. So that's how I can respond to your.
But I think the other important thing is that then the powerful people will have to listen.
Yeah.
So that's another change in attitude that you need to generate.
Yeah.
But also the willingness to listen.
Exactly.
And that I think is the most challenging.
Yeah, because sometimes in doing that, you would think that the more powerful, by telling them to listen, they may have the impression that they are losing their powers. Because they know they are powerful and influential. But you have to let them understand that it's not about losing their powers, but it's about attaining a given objective. It's about listening to the others. It's about contributing to the general interest of all the stakeholders that intervene within a given landscape.
But I think that then you do that when when you are able to do a participatory analysis of the problem and generate the vision, then people feel ready
Yeah.
to listen and to, but they have to feel that they are part of the bigger picture.
Yes, I think you are right to talk about analyzing the claims of the people. And that is why it's important to do the stakeholder, to identify the actors. Because as we said in the beginning, they have different reasons for operating in the given landscape. He is there because the minority group is there because he wants to earn a living. A development actor may there because he has the interest of protecting the landscape. The donor may have his own interests, which may differ from that of the local chief, who is there to protect his interest as a powerful leader and have control all over the resources. So this sometimes they may conflicting. Okay, you may go in a situation where you have, like we have in Cameroon, where we have these zone synergetic, I think, zone synergetic, synergetic zones.
Zone.
Okay, where you have farmers who want to go and farm in those areas. Okay, and then you have those who are managing those hunting zones who prevent them from farming inside. But the farmers don't have an alternative. You have cattle rearers, you have transhumans, you have farmers who go and farm in areas that have been demarcated as grazing areas. But if you don't listen to all the parties, you will not realize that in most of the situation, sometimes it's the farmers that are violating the existing laws by encroaching into grazing areas. Sometimes the grazers don't have a choice but to let the animals graze where they are supposed to graze. But the farmers have planted crops. So you need to bring all these stakeholders together on the table and let them accept that, okay, this is a demarcated area for grazing. Let's, from now onwards, stop farming in this area. And what will be the fine if you encroach into that area? Then who is going to implement those fines? Is it going to be the traditional ruler? Is it the government? How do you solve the conflicts that you have? So all of these comes into the equation about managing a given landscape. But sometimes it may be also be, you may have some category of actors that you may not really control, like the rebels. How do you do that? I think Raphael has more experience on that.
Yeah, because probably one of the things when you do this stakeholder identification and mapping is not because you want to have them all physically sitting around the table, but you want to understand how the project has to engage with them. And that's similar to what you have in cases for Central and Latin America, of course, where you have rebels or you have criminal groups, or but I think Raphael has
more examples.
Yes, I think
experience on that.
maybe before talking about rebels, I want to build on what Divine just say about actors. He told us who they are, and I also I want to tell who they are not, who they are not, because most of the actors in the landscape where we are working, of course, they are local communities, and they are operating in an informal manner. For fishing, for hunting, logging, and most of the time they are treating like criminal. But in my perspective, they are not. So there is a need for clarity as much as possible.
Mhm,
So we need to clarify what is legal, what is illegal, what is legitimate, and what is not. That is very important, and especially when we are trying to put in place this mystic stakeholder forum, because it's based on the categorization that we can determine who we can take on board and who we cannot bring in to bring in around the table. So for me, those people are not all of them are not criminal.
He was making the example that I found interesting of the grazers and the farmers, saying that, okay, the farmers are violating the rules or the laws. But then your point is about what does the law say and why, because it might be that it's that encroachment is informal and illegal, but actually is legitimate.
Yes, there is
So
kind of local legitimacy
exactly
that
I think that's
organize the way how people are intervening in the landscape, and sometimes the law didn't really capture the local dynamic. That's why it's, and I like the point about the process. That's why sometimes it's interesting to use a bottom-up approach instead of the classic top-down approach that we used to see in the in most of the projects. So for me, although these actors are not criminal, and we need to keep this in mind when we are working when we are implementing ILM approach. So that's the first thing. Now the second thing is about rebels, and typically this is the elephant in the room. So it's the most important actor, criminal groups, armed group, especially in fragile state, in collapse state, where some ILM projects are operating. And then the question is, how can we deal with this type of actors? Do we take them on board or not? If we take them on board, we create a conflict with the government. If we do not, we can't implement ILM practice, because they are the guys who are on the ground. They are those who are controlling
They have the power.
The landscape, and so sometimes where the government, even the government cannot do. So it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge, and I don't think that the ILM project can overcome this situation that goes further beyond uh, their their mission. But does it mean that we don't have to implement ILM practices in this area? I think we should. We should, because we have to consider another perspective. If we don't have ILM project in this landscape, how the landscape should look like? Probably for me, the situation would have been worse. So ILM is also playing a kind of stabilization role. They cannot solve all the problems, but at least they can maintain a kind of equilibrium.
the balance.
Yeah, a kind of balance.
Yeah.
So that, okay, they are trying to implement uh, their activities. They are trying to work with all the actors, all the key players in the landscape, in order to maintain in order to stabilize the situation. And this means that they have to work with the government, with local community, with state officials. They have to deal with all the dynamics across the landscape.
Let me take you to the Burkina Faso case. I think what you have said is very important. I think we had a similar situation when we went to the field in Burkina Faso. where we identified that there was this group that was encroaching into the park. So you can remember.
Yeah.
And because they were able to identify that category of stakeholder, because I want to respond to the point where you say, how do we work with that category of people who are rebels? In Burkina, in the Ponasi project, the guys, what did they do? They created some sort of a social lab, sort of a social center, where they facilitated interaction between different communities by having these social centers where people come and watch video games, people come and play football, people by facilitating interaction, they could easily identify or exchange information about encroachment of this category of rebels into that community. So they could easily say, okay, we have seen a strange person moving into our community, and they could report that to the authorities who could easily engage with that or stop them from entering the community. So I think Raphael is right to say it's good to know that that category of actor is existing in a given landscape, but the problem is how do you work in order to limit their powers? So that sort of social lab where people exchange information about who comes in, who goes out, can easily help to control who is having negative influence over the landscape.
But don't you think that it's also important because, for example, in the cases we have in Colombia and also based on experience in Peru, so you had big social conflicts. So these are post-conflict territories.
Yes.
You still have armed groups. These armed groups might be connected to narco traffic, so it is really big. Huh? And on one side, when you, for example, when we first did our first exercise of stakeholder mapping in Colombia, the people did not mention them.
Yeah.
So that was not coming out. And then you had like Ministry of Environment, power, so ranking, And then you said, but of course we had some background, so you also know how to facilitate to make sure that and you prepare and have some preliminary some background knowledge about it. So when this presence of the armed group emerged, immediately power 10. So, and that made the value of the power of the other institution they already had identified becoming. But then, of course, you don't have them at the table. And the thing is, they have a present power, but then there is also a legacy from the past because villages might have attacked, people might have been killed. But to me, what you described about Burkina is really interesting because it's not the project alone that intervene in this context. There are other actors. And so these other actors or other institutions might be dealing with this group. So it's not up to the ILM project to deal with this group, but to mainstream the initiative through these other projects and that's what. So there are direct and indirect way to engage, right?
Yes, interesting because in some of the for example, in Central Africa Republic, the BC Shari project, they are working with a humanitarian organization, with the United Nations, who is present there. So there is a lot of actors intervening in this landscape, and they are trying to work with them. And in this perspective, I think that to some extent, ILM can also contribute to peace building. And the example of Burkina Faso is also interesting because this social lab that Divine just mentioned, his role is also to create alternative to young people. to create other activities so that they will not have to join armed group. Because let's be clear, there is a kind of war economy when there is an instability, and sometimes it's most easy for young people to join this armed group because when you have a weapon, yes, you can get bribes, you can
similar to
yes.
areas where you have narco trafficking.
There is sometimes it might be interesting for young to join this group. Now, what type of alternative can we build as project to avoid that or to limit because I'm not sure we can avoid, but we can try to limit the number of young who want to join this group. And the idea is to create alternative activities to develop income generating activities, and that so that they can be fixed somewhere to do agriculture, to develop a project. But of course, this implies a support of various actors, meaning that donors, society organization, government, complementing the action of project implementing ILM.
So it's like building coalitions.
Yes.
Coalition.
Of actors and institutions that are
Yeah.
investing. But I have one question for both of you, because I see sometimes project that comes with this reconciling the conflicts between conservation and livelihoods and development in areas of conflict. You feel like conservation and these people actually have to survive. How legitimate is it to come in to talking about conservation if you do not engage in other forms? What's your opinion about that? How do you manage this challenge of feeling that you are coming in with something that is not primarily relevant for the actors there, that is conservation, because they have to survive every day?
Yeah, this is where the understanding of the local dynamics comes to the discussion. And for the project implementing ILM, this is also where the concept of adaptation is important, because for me the context matters. The context is very, very important. If you are in an environment where people have some alternative in terms of access to fish, to maize, okay, you can deploy some strategies. But if you are in context where the only either in source of income or food is hunting, you need to integrate it in your strategy. And of course, in country where we are working, laws and regulation are trying to organize that. So is the local community are allowed to hunt for their own mate.
Is this like law in the sense of state laws, or is like norms of the community?
In the sense of state laws.
Okay.
Yeah. So they can hunt for their own purpose, but they can't sell. They can't sell it.
Very similar.
Yes,
to timber.
that's the limitation. So we need to consider that as a. But of course, there is a gradient in this process between what is important for for local consumption
Livelihood.
and for livelihood, and when people are starting to sell it, and then it becomes illegal hunting. But now you have to deal with another challenge, because sometimes selling bush meat is one of the main source of income.
Mhm.
So if you don't have, if you don't put in place alternatives, so it will not be easy to manage this part. And this means that for the conservation of organization, they have to develop this alternative. Let me take
So that
an example.
do you mean that they have also to break some of their own taboos about being rigid about the concept of conservation and understand people
Valentina, let me come in.
accepting?
Let me come in. Let me come in here. We have said that we identify actors in the landscape, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And we have said that there are different categories of actors and they have different roles, they have different interests.
Mhm.
Okay. And and you ask the question in this multitude of with this different category of actors where you bring in conservation and development, how do you go about things? I think there is where another important concept, element of integrated landscape management comes in, developing a common vision. Those actors are in the landscape. Like Raphael was saying, this man has to do this man has this. It's important and primarily important that those who have decided to come together in a given platform to sustainably manage a given landscape with conflicting interests, that they develop a common vision of where they want to go. And if this succeeds to say our interest is surviving within this landscape, because people come first, right? We've always said that we are not interested in landscape just because we want to keep it back.
It's about human beings.
It's about human beings.
Yeah.
So these human beings that are interacting there, when you have this diversity, they sit on the same table. They have to develop the path where they want to go. What do they want to do, and how do they want to do it? So I just want to come in to attach to what he's saying, that they have to develop a common vision that we have this or that problem. This is my interest. This is yours, and that is yours. But how do we move forward? We have to protect our landscape, and to do that, this is actor X who is grazing on my land, where I have to my cattle have to pass. Can you stop doing that? What is the alternative, as you are saying? How do you, now that I was living on this resource, how do I get forward? If the zone plan, if the zoning, the micro zoning plans were faulty, can we see that we do another micro zoning
Mhm,
to
mhm.
make sure that each person has something that he can live on for the interest of the people, to make the landscape resilient as well as the communities that are living in?
But I think you're here. You are talking, and I think the interesting thing would be if you once you really apply it in areas where there are conflicts, and I cannot like imagine armed group sitting and to the table and developing a common vision,
Oh no,
right?
we cannot.
But then it's okay. What is the vision about the landscape? And I think the key thing is not something you do that in one meeting. It's a process to develop. And then what is the strategy and the engagement to implement
How do you
implement
engage?
that?
Yeah.
And I think here is very important than in areas where you have a very fragile governance and social capital that is not yet resilient. How do you go for that? With based, I mean, on your experience.
This is where ILM practitioner are very important. They are really important. If I take the example the of the forestry sector, I remember probably 10 or 14 years ago, when this more than 10 years, almost 20 years, when this discussion on forest certification emerged in in the Congo Basin. The Congo Basin, and the situation was okay. We have state laws in regulation. The government made the zoning, the allocation of logging concession on the map. Everything was fine. But the problem was that to implement their activities, logging company had to deal with local communities because these local communities are hunting, fishing in the logging, in the forest concession, and this was forbidden. So one of the solutions was to put in place multi-stakeholder platform, multi-stakeholder fora to discuss, to determine a kind of vision, the right of people, what is law, what is forbidden, and put in place a kind of iterative process. When there is a problem, we can say, okay, maybe the strategy that we have put in place is not the good one. We need to revise it. We need to adapt it. And that is something that is important. So, and this was done by the logging companies, not by the government. That's why I think that the project teams, the ILM practitioner can play a critical role in organizing activities at the landscape level. Of course, at some point, they have to bring in state officials on board, because also at the end of the day, we have to recognize that they are the ones who are taking some decisions, who can change policies.
Yeah.
And so I think that the role of ILM practitioner is really important. And they were doing, but also logging companies had changed their modus operandi, also because of the pressure of external actors, mainly NGOs. So it means that we have local actors, but also we need to take into consideration the fact that other actors who are not really key players in the landscape, but who have an interest in conservation, in development, in the protection of indigenous people rights, can also contribute in the way how activities are organized on the ground.
But that's really a system approach, right? Where you see how the agency of some actors then generates changes in their, like the case of the logging company, I think is very interesting. And I think what is interesting about what he said is that the ILM practitioners really have a role and an agency. So it's not, because now we are talking about the actors, but we are not talking about our own role. That I think it's very important. And to me, and this is something that I think is relevant. I don't have all the answers, but I kind of sense that it's important for the practitioners to build trust so that all the stakeholders recognize the bridging facilitating role of the practitioner, that they don't have an invested interest, that they are more close to, so that they really can facilitate. And the other thing is that the ILM practitioners, so the project, the institution who are also have power. Because, for example, and that happened to us in Peru, that people were very skeptical about our intervention. They didn't know. But when we explained how you can generate change, for example, in the policy. Yeah, I'm working here, but because of disengagement in other projects,
Yeah.
I mean, this can be raised and can generate change that then is a cascade of. Then they can say, oh, yes, I'm interested to sit at this table because I trust the process.
Yeah.
And I know that it will lead to a change, even if it takes time. How important do you think it is to really give emphasis to this agency of the ILM practitioners?
I would like to tap in on the element of trust that you just mentioned and working in areas of weak governance.
Okay, yeah.
You said something important because this is something we face this, and I'll always go back to the farmer grazer conflicts that we have. And we attended a workshop within the central component of the landscape for this future, and we organized a game. We really have weak governance that characterize uh, um, the activities that we implement in on the field. Most of the participants actually accepted that we work in an environment where there is weak governance. And to go back to your case of trust, where farmers don't trust government officials when it comes to solving farmer grazer problems, because they have the impression that the grazers are richer than them, and that it is easy to corrupt those government officials that are supposed to solve those conflicts. So in such a situation, how do you sit the farmers and the grazers and expect that a government official will mediate between the two? The element of trust is not there. And when it's not there, it cannot function. And that is where we as practitioners, we have to come in to facilitate that process, facilitate trust building. Trust to guarantee trust that this is something. Trust is something. It's a general perception, and it's built over time. And you have to make sure that you bring the stakeholders in a situation, in a form where they actually sit and discuss amongst themselves that X, Y, and Z is doing this, and they see that X was really wrong, and it's maybe this is what has resulted in the loss of trust or confidence in the government official. So I think it's something that we as practitioners have to do, facilitating trust building amongst different actors, because at a given point we will have to live as development actors.
But it means that we have to be trusted as well.
We have to be trusted.
So we have to be accountable.
Of course.
We have to be trusted.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. I think, and you are right. Building trust is a long-term process.
Yes.
It's not something that can be done in 1, 2, or 3 years.
But it's a valuable investment.
Yes, it's an investment.
Yeah.
It may take 10 years.
It's valuable.
Yeah, and it's most important. It's because there is trust among actors that they can change the way that they are operating, that they can talk each other. Let me take the example of the timber sector one again, especially what we are calling informal loggers.
Just one thing that I think it's important. It's like we have two cases, grazers, farmers. It's like go by the books. It's the manual of conflicts. And then logging company is the other big sphere. So I'm very happy that we have these two
examples.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because for the government, for the government, informal logging is what we call informal. For the government, it's illegal. So you remember that I mentioned the difference we need to make between informal, illegal,
Who they are and who they are not.
who they are,
They
and,
are not
and who they are not. Why are we calling them informal? It's because we don't want to treat them like criminal. If they are not criminal, they can sit around the table. And this is how, as facilitator, we have been able to take these guys around the table. So now they can talk to the government, they can discuss about the policy, about the regulation, about the best strategy to make sure that they are now operating in a legal way according to the government regulation. And this means that the government has to adapt its laws and regulation to make sure to make sure that these people are now part of the business.
That's part of the long-term strategy
And this
of
is
inclusion.
the inclusion, and this is a long-term strategy.
It's a long-term.
It implies a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion, a lot of support, a lot of capacity building, because these people are not able, if I remember, they were not able to talk in front of, for example, the director of forest. It was a challenge. So as facilitator, we need to build their capacity. We need to organize meetings with other actors from other countries operating in the same sector, so that they can share their experience. And I think this is one of the key: inclusion, capacity building, and time. These are three key ingredients.
I have a final question, because sometimes when we talk about multi-stakeholder platform, and what we visualize are meetings, right?
Yeah.
But here we are not talking about meetings. Here we are talking about processes, long-term investments, building trust, and all this is not is done through bilateral engagements. Then there are so many. So meetings are one moment of the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there are all the other activities that are not like just not sitting together around the table, but building all these capacity, the enabling conditions to.
Exactly.
So I think it's very important to think of the process. But are we saying that multi-stakeholder fora and mapping are like made or consist of many different activities? If you have to balance or to estimate, based on your experience, the relevance of these multi-stakeholder meetings, dialogues, and the investment for that versus the investment on building the condition to have, how much is that in terms? Because we all look at
The
tables and meetings, but actually the
It's
big
groundwork
investment is what.
behind.
Yeah,
Groundwork.
Yeah, I think the
the meeting is for the picture.
meetings are the formal aspect, the visible aspect of the process.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But 90%, in my perspective, of the work is what we are doing before. Is most of the time the informal work, the invisible part of the job. So it means that you have
of the practitioners.
Of the practitioners.
Yes.
Meaning that you have to organize informal meetings with people, sometimes bilateral meetings. You need to talk to them, to explain, to discuss, to listen. Most important, to listen, to understand the local dynamic. Why this guy don't want to talk to the other one? What is the problem? What are the dynamic across the landscape? Is it a misunderstanding? Is it a conflict in terms of interest, in terms of vision? So we have to be able, we have to work on the social dimension of the process.
And
But this is
connect to that.
this is a governance process. Takes time, and we have to use all the channels that we have. And in my experience, informal channels are the most important. Once you have done that, now you can't organize these big meetings with nice pictures.
So you build your convening power.
Yeah, with people smiling and so on. So, but it's really the final stage of the process. But 90% of the work is.
And I think
I totally agree.
That takes me to the challenges that practitioners may face, especially regards to donors. Why do I say that? Because sometimes, what do we first during when building these processes? The number of meetings organized, the number of these organized.
Yeah.
And when you do these things in the log frame model, and you realize that no, but you have to do all these informal meetings, all these networkings, all these mediations, all these negotiations, that sometimes you fail to budget in your activities.
Yes.
It's very important for practitioners to know that the number of formal meetings that we just talk about is just an ice, it's just icing on the cake.
Yeah, it's the top of the iceberg.
It's top of the iceberg. So while developing projects, we as practitioners need to take this into consideration.
It's investment, it's money.
It's a lot of investment in the groundwork, because sometimes you may go to a community about 4, 5, 10 times to be able to engage a dialogue with a category of people.
And what is important is that we have to be able to show, the practitioner have to be able to show that it goes beyond the mechanic. It's not the mechanic. The mechanic is, but it's all the soft.
Soft skills.
Yeah. I think you're right.